Recording is in progress. Howdy, y'all. This is Platoon, Foxtrot Platoon, evenings and weekends. I'm your host, Jordan. Today, we're doing week 11, day 2. This is full stack architecture. We're getting there. This is basically, if you stop learning after today, you'll still have a lot of stuff to learn. But you could build full stack applications. All we're going to do from here on out is show you better ways to do it, show you faster ways to do it, show you easier ways, so you don't have to, use tools that don't expand well, use tools that have a lot of flexibility, but that's not such a good thing. You'll kind of learn. We're going to start using stuff that's more structured to help you kind of aim these applications so that I don't have to look at every single line of your entire code to understand how your application works. If I have stood up a Django application before, and then you stand up a Django application before, mostly following the rules, I can, pretty quickly figure out how your application works without having to dig into the nitty gritty. But today we'll be doing kind of really high level full stack architecture application. So there are, I guess, and these two kind of run together, 4 major pieces of this full stack puzzle. You get the client. The client could be a web browser. It could be a curl command. It could be it's a request, right? The client is the request. It's not necessarily the person making the request. It's the request itself. The web server, notice you would think a client could be a web server. No. The web server could receive something from the client and then make its own request backwards. So web server, typically first place client will go. That is true. If you're not directly interacting with the API, you're going to be using the web server as your kind of go-between for that. Web server will reach out to the app server, the API, the application. Oh my gosh, what does the P stand for?
Or programming interface.
There you go. Programming interface. Goodness, I knew it was interface. Why can't I think about the P word in a programming class? And then database. Database is the backends, what y'all were doing last week. So y'all should very well understand what that is. But that's a bunch of hoopla, you say. Check it out. This is a website you may or may not have heard of. I just now have visited the web server, and the client by which I did that was a GET request. This right here, what you see, I performed a GET request. So the client has reached out to the web server. Have we hit the app server yet? I don't know, maybe, but let's say we had information that is not readily just pasted on the front end. Let's say there's like a list of people that work at Platoon, but that list is really long and really important or whatever, so we got it back in the database. I am going to go here, and I've made another GET request. But at this point, my GET went to the web server and said, hey, get me a list of the leadership. Web server says, I don't have that. I'm going to talk to the app server. App server says, I don't have that. I'm going to go to the database. Database pulls a SQL query, gets a list of all the users, hands it to the app server. App server says, thank you for that SQL query. I'm going to turn that into JSON. So it blows it up into a bunch of JSON with a list of users and whatnot. Maybe a link to their picture, and then passes that to the web server. Web server says, okay, great. I have all this JSON. I got some references to pictures, and I got a big pile of pictures here. Maybe I'll just take all these things, organize them, move them around, make them look nice and pretty. Oh, those are names I can associate with pictures, so I can put pictures by their names. And then I, the client, get to see it. And that's it. That's it. That's how it works. Man, look how good looking these evenings, weekends instructors are. All right. So now you know everything about full stack applications. We didn't really get into these, but I didn't really feel the need to. You'll understand how databases work. We've spent 2 weeks on it. They are information persistence stores, basically, that you can interact with, query with, create, read, update, delete. The app server is just going to be doing something in between the database and the front end. The amount of work you want this app server doing is totally up to you. There are certain, conventional things that it should do, but it's really just limited to what you want the back end to do. As you've seen, SQL is fairly powerful. It can do a lot of work, but you can't scratch every itch with SQL, and not everyone wants to make an exact specific SQL query for everything, right? Interacting with SQL is great. If you want to go get a specific person by their name with their ID, but only if they live within these dates and whatever, awesome. How is a user supposed to do that, you don't want to have to type out every single possible SQL query ever, or build something that somehow interacts, like takes objects and maps them relationally to SQL. That would be insane. We're going to have an app server that does that for us. That's generally any interactions with the database, any data manipulation is going to happen on the back end. This is going to be the fastest place to do it. And it's typically written in a language that's pretty quick sometimes, not today, but often. And then the web server, which is going to usually be JavaScript, you don't want like a ton of business logic going on there. Ideally, you've got all the information that you need from the database organized in the way you want it, and the front end can kind of just paste it where it wants it, right? And the client doesn't do any work. But these three things are kind of what make up what we're doing today. I kind of just explained this. These are fine, but the arrows get a little confusing to me personally. So you send a request to a web server, it responds with HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. The other option is a client would interact directly with the API, maybe pass through the web server, maybe not, and they would just receive JSON instead. And if the API needs to interact with the database, it will do so. You can interact with the web server, you can interact with the API directly. Sometimes, a lot of applications you'll see, will have a web server front end interface for regular Joes. But if I wanted to build something on top of that, they would give me the API as well. So depending on how you want to build it out, having a nice API that people can interact with can be great, or it can just be for you, and the client would never know how to reach this API. We're going to teach you how to do both here. We want our API to be interactable with things that aren't our application and are our application. So let's look at this application called PeopleGetter. I'm going to try and walk through it in the least confusing way possible. But like I kind of talked about at the beginning of class, this is just structured in a way that makes sense to the person that created this application. There is no standard convention being followed here necessarily. We're trying to keep it as little files as possible so we don't have to pay attention to too much different stuff. But it's not organized well. It doesn't expand well. It's hard to kind of, understand how it's all kind of put together at first. So I don't want to talk about it too long. I'm going to talk about it only as long as I have to. All right, so I did clone this down, but if I hadn't cloned it down, I'd go here and we take a look at it. I think it's probably easier to view here in GitHub, so let's do it that way. We've got a startall.sh file. If you want to just run this, you'll run startall.sh, and then we're going to use the live server extension on VS Code to do the front end for us. This is going to set up a database and it's going to set up a back end. It's not going to set up a server for the front end. There's no real web server here in the code. Our live live server extension is going to be doing that for us. So that's kind of the third bit. That's just being provided by this little button here. Let me kill that real quick. What start all does, it goes to the database directory and runs setup.sh. Let's get a quick look at that so we're not thinking this is all just magic. It builds a Docker image called people database from this directory here. It then runs it in a container. Let's look at what's going to be in that database. Database called people. The people database is going to have a person, which is ID, name, email, favorite animal. Easy peasy. Literally just first name, email, favorite animal. That's it. And they got an ID. Simple database. What else does this do? Docker inspect -f. All this truly is going to do is get us an IP address from our database that's running. We're doing that because the backend is going to need that. This is just how we've decided to plug these two things in together. I don't need you to read all this. I mean, it's just Jinja, but it's, don't worry too much about this. Don't look at it. This is just, we're getting an IP address from our running database container. We're plugging it into the backend because our backend requires that. Sometimes these would be more, closely married in the future. We're starting the API using this bad boy right here. Start API.sh. Build Docker image, tag it, people API, run it. So it builds our backend and serves it up there too. So we're gonna have two containers running. The third, the web server, it's not even talked about here. It's gonna be built from the front end, but we're just gonna be providing it from VS Code. So don't worry too much about how we're gonna serve the front end. We've got tools for that in the future. This is just the quickest, easiest way to get us there. Let's start it up and take a look at it. Ooh. Bunch of junk. What's next? Not important. We're running a Flask server. It's in debug mode. That's why this is red. We're running two addresses. One of these is our database. One of these is our backend. I think that one's backend. Anyhow, great. Now what? Well, let's go live and see what happens. Ew, this is yucky. Well, I ran go live here at this level. Had I changed directories down into the front end, it might have known what to do a little bit better. But VS Code just sees, right, this directory here. And if you use the live server, it's just going to go into this directory and not really know exactly what's going on. You could get out of that by starting two different ones here and then change directories and over. We're not going to mess with all that. Let's get this running again. And just go to the front end. Oh, here it goes. Now it knows what it wants to do. So if we had opened this in the front end, this is what in the front end directory, this is what it would see. This application is highly complicated. You can pick a number and then get a person, or you can just get all of the people. That's it. That's all the features. Let's see how it's doing those things. So let's look at the HTML real fast. I think that's usually a good place to start. Welcome to People Getter. How the heck is that getting in here? Well, let's go to the front end. It's probably an index.html. That's where this stuff goes. There it is. Title People Getter, but what we were actually looking at was Welcome to People Getter. There it is. That's it. That's magic's gone. All this right here, it's all boiled down to this little HTML page. But it's not just raw, boring HTML, right? There's some JavaScript in there doing something. You can't do this kind of cool stuff with HTML. But we've seen that before. And if we hadn't, we can probably guess. Sorry, not the style sheet necessarily, but I mean, this is style, believe it or not. There's like a little bit going on here. But this app.js is our script. So if we want to know how stuff's getting here, we're going to have to go check that out. What I'm curious in, I think the first easiest thing is just this button. I want to know what's going on with this button. That button is right here. Its ID is the list button. If you don't believe me, we could probably see it here. Button, list button. That's it right there. Wow, that took All my space, huh? See, there it is. See, that's glowed. There, that's a button. You trust me? All right. So let's figure out what kind of logic is attached to that. Front end, app.js. A lot of this is review, and that's purposeful. Hey, there's the list button. We pulled it directly out of the DOM like we always do. So where's that being used? I want to see what kind of stuff's associated with it. Just search it on this page. Oh, hey, check it out. So we do have an event listener for list button. When you click it, it runs two functions, remove users and get people. I bet the remove users just clears out whatever's in that container, HTML container, right? So that it doesn't just keep building a longer and longer list each time, right? We want it to go away when we add stuff, when we search a user or search all the users. While user.container dot first child, what is this user container? Oh, that's here too. That's been established, and that is so big. Where's our user container? Where did it go? Oh, here it is. So this box here is our user container. Sounds good. Remove users looks at its first child. If there is a first child, user container dot remove child. It's just going to pull out whatever was placed into there, the first div that exists. So that's easy enough to understand. Let's see get people. I think that one's going to be a little bit more complex. Here it is. It is a little complex because it's jumping around a little bit, but get people, asynchronous function. We've seen this before, nothing too crazy. It's performing a fetch to this URL. This URL, this base URL. Ooh, what's this? I want to see that. Ooh. This is our Flask app. It's just serving us this message, success. Look at that. We'll remember that. But that's not people. I want to see some humans. Oh, and it's attaching, oh, sorry. Get people is attaching /all to it. So let's see what happens when we do that to our Flask app. Ooh, look at that. Well, that looks nice. That looks like some JSON we can use. That's easier to look at than a database. So this is performing a fetch, and that's what all is going on right here. You don't have to. We can follow this do fetch. It's just performing a fetch, turning it into JSON for us. So go to this URL, whatever whatever you get once you fetch it, call it fetch result, and then people is going to be fetch result dot people. Oh, hey, look, the key is people. So it's just, this is the fetch result dot people. That's how we look at this JSON. For each person, we're going to create HTML person. This is a bit review, create HTML person. You create a div, an H3 tag, a P1 tag, a P2 tag. The H3 is going to get person 1. This is going to be, we're deciding this is person, person index 1 is going to be name, right? Because the 0 index would be 1, the 1 index is their name. So we take the name, which is the 1 index, the 2 index, 3 index, that looks good. So H3 gets the person's name, this paragraph tag gets their email, and then a second paragraph tag gets their favorite animal. We append to this div that was created right here, those 3 things. We call it item. We slap it in the user container. So all this builds out a div for each one of these people, puts in H3 tag, P1 tag, P2 tag, slaps them all in that div. And then once we've done this for every single person, we paste that within this user container. Sound good? The only difference for what's going on with this drop down here, well, there's a few differences. The main one, user select, it's going to be grabbing the result of whatever that select is. Then runs down here. Yep, user select. Instead of grab people, we're going to get person. Here, we're doing the same basic thing. Instead of all, we're going to fetch by an ID. So logically, I bet we could just put some random number in there and get a person. Easy peasy. That's how the front end is interacting with the back end. Don't even worry about the database yet. Don't care. The front end doesn't care about the database. Front end developers don't even know what databases are. They only know the back end, right? They're not doing any SQL. That's for back end developers. Or not even, because they use ORMs. I don't use SQL. Great. We should, for the most part, follow this. This is not new. We've seen this kind of stuff before. We look at the DOM, right? Well, we look at the HTML, output. We assign, basically, we grab actions from these tags based off their IDs, right? There's that list container. We just grab the ID when it changes or when we want to do something to it, we refer it to there. We use fetch to make a call to a backend. We pull that information in and we spit it back out to the HTML by generating containers for it and pumping it in there. Nothing crazy. We've seen this before. But let's talk about my favorite part, which is the API. So ignore database, that we're not going to look at it anymore, I don't think, realistically. Here's the API. Docker file stands it up, that's fine. This IP address from earlier, when I said ignore that IP address, all we were doing was writing this IP address into the file and then using API to, basically, it's using that file. Don't worry about it. Requirements.txt, that's just Python. Start API.sh, already looked at that. That's how we start it. The only code here that we care about is the server.py. And that's not that much code. That's 44 lines for a whole server. That's pretty good. I am eating so much spam. All right. So we all know Python well enough. We know these are just imports, nothing crazy. This looks like some dunder work. That's just telling Flask, hey, this is the app. Cores is going to get us around some cross-origin, issues. Host and port. I'll spoil the secret now. We're using that to interact with the database. So all of this is just importing libraries we want, telling Flask, basic Flask stuff. This is boilerplate. And these are just variables we're using to interact with the database. Let's look at our very first route. And this is how you build a route in Flask. At app.route. And that's just saying, hey, this is home. So if I were to go to Flask, which, is, hey, it even tells us right there. Ooh, remember I told you to remember that? Message success. Well, now we know where the heck that comes from, right? It's just returning JSON dumps, message success. That's the JSON right there. In Flask, you have to name the route, and then you have to name the function. 99% of the time, you're never going to call this function ever again. If you wanted to, you could. But these are routes. These are endpoints. Just use them, for what their purpose is. If you really wanted a route to reference another route, I've not had to do that. There's reasons you may want to do that. Makes your stuff dry. We're not going to do that. We're just going to have a unique name for the function. This is a once-off kind of thing. This is an anonymous function, basically. All we have to say is app.route, whatever is here, is going to function, or sorry, is going to trigger this code here. Easy peasy. Without even getting into all of this, I bet we as a class could figure out how to add a new route. Done. I built a new route. Let's say I wanted to go to, if somebody comes to our website and types the word hello, remember, this has got to be unique. That's a new function. That's whatever. I could call it whatever I want. It doesn't matter. That's not going to be called anywhere else. Return JSON dumps message equals, well, I want this message to be hello world. This isn't going to, rebuild. This is going to rebuild on the fly. We've got a container running. We have to kill it, redeploy it, restart it basically. So start all.sh, spinning it up. Now it's up there. It's brand new. Let's interact with our backend. Oh, check it out. I built an endpoint. Nothing crazy. The backend is not more complicated than the front end. I just built an endpoint. Shows you how to return stuff with it. But Jordan, that's a string. That's simple. Well, the rest of it's simple too. It's just Python, y'all. We're using have we interacted with, because I know I didn't cover this in class. I don't remember if we do anymore. Do we cover psychop-g? Anyone nod their heads? Have y'all seen this word before?
We did it
Okay, great.
yesterday.
Excellent. We're just using that to interact with the database. This is basically running basic old, basic SQL. Sorry, here's the SQL through Flask. So there's the host we established up here. There's the port we established. We're telling the database we want, or rather the database name is people, user Postgres, password. We're plugging in all this. All of this is kind of boilerplate, right? That's going to be the same for every one of our calls here. With con.cursor, as cursor, you don't have to remember all that. Again, boilerplate. So all this is boilerplate. Cursor.execute, also boilerplate. And we're just putting in a SQL query. This is the /all endpoint. If you go to the /all endpoint, it's going to run this query. Select star from person. It's going to get them all, close the connection. Then all we're doing is returning some JSON with the key people, and people if people else no one's home. That's kind of error handling. This is just a ternary in Python. Basically, people is going to be whatever we get from this SQL query, and it's going to slap it into JSON. So we go to /all again, and we get people and all these people in JSON form from the database. The one other thing our app does is search it by ID. Well, we built this route, and if I wanted to search by ID, this is how I'd pass in a parameter. It's assuming that everything after / that does not equal all or hello. Where did my hello go? Oh, I didn't push it. We're looking at the repo. Anything that's not all or root, home, basically, it's assuming that's an ID. That's the argument. That is going to get passed into the function. So we do pass it into the function so it knows whatever's coming in here, function saying, oh, that's ID. All the same as the last function. These are almost identical. The only difference is it's running some Python here to select star from person where ID is equal to. Jordan, I've never seen that. That's like Python 3.5. 3.6 is where we got format strings, so we don't have to do this anymore. This, and by the way, I'm going to make another change to it while we're thinking about it, because you've seen me update this. You've seen me add an endpoint. Well, I'm just going to make this, more modern Python, because I don't like reading that. Nobody likes that. Thumbs up. A lot easier to read, right? Format string, select star from person where ID is equal to ID. This looks like Python we've done before. It pulls this in. Unless I'm worse at Python than I think, then this ought to run no problem. Yep, still works just fine. Any questions about that? Oops. This looks like boilerplate because it is. This is telling app to start, or sorry, Flask to run. You don't need to become experts on Flask, although you'd make my heart full if you did. It's just Django with no rules. It's the Wild West of Django. You can do whatever you want with it. You put it on one file. If this starts getting too long, break it up into other files, organize them the way you want. Nobody's telling you what to do. But with freedom, what is it? With great power comes great, is it consequence or responsibility? I'm hearing consequence in my head. It's responsibility, right? Well, I just had an issue at work and I've been using it wrong today. People want freedom. Well, they have consequences too. That's that. I don't expect all of you to be able to blow through that step by step as quickly as I did, but I think you probably can, given enough time. If I asked you to, look at this page here and tell me where these things are coming from, I would expect you to be able to trace those for the most part. I didn't hop into the database. I didn't feel like it today. We could if we really wanted to get in there, but I know you probably trust that it's there as we expect. Any takers before we do some real quick pair programming? Cool beans. At the risk of something going wrong, I'm going to mock out 90% of what I want Philip to do, and then we're just going to turn it over to Philip as if he had forked from my fork. But if I were to work on this with Philip, this people getter, I would probably fork this. I think it's going to yell at me because I already have one. Oh no, I did delete it. Create a fork. This is how you guys normally work on stuff, right? Creating a fork here. Cool. Now we're people getter forked from there, but it's mine now. It's a fork. And the way forks work, it's hard to open up their permissions. So if I really wanted to add another person on here, where am I? There we go. Collaborators and teams, add people. What is it? It's success Phil. Is that's you, right? I just doxed
Yeah,
my
that's me.
TA.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, and I would add to this, say, hey, you can write on this. Now, Phil should be able to go to my fork, clone it, and work on it just like that. He'd pull a branch. We're not going to do that right now because I don't want him to have to destroy his, start it back up, restart it. Instead, we're going to pretend that Phil went to my fork, cloned it down, and he's just working on it now. He pulled a branch, he's working on Phil's branch. Let me pause real quick. That is the end of that lecture. There's not really anything else here but words. I am going to step through pair programming real fast because I don't think we do much of it in this class, and we don't want to do a fun little assignment where you have to pair program. I just kind of want you all to see how I would do it and my expectations for it, because this is how you're going to work in the real world. You very rarely are left to your own devices. You're almost always pairing because it's great. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to stop the share. We're still recording. Phil, can you share your screen? Open up VS Code. I've got some features here I want to add.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want me to close out of what I've got, or?
That's fine.
Okay. I just
What's your pleasure?
have. Okay.
Cool. So we should be able to make changes to this, restart it, and it'll all be good, I assume. If this doesn't take forever on yours, if yours starts slowing down, then we'll swap back to mine. Don't know what kind of rig you're running over here. All right. So in the terminal, I've seen this. Actually, we're just going to skip that one because I don't want to make this too complicated. All we're going to do is add a new feature, and that feature is how to search by name. So we need to add a feature on the front end that allows us to look up users not by their ID, but by their name instead.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, you said on the front end, we want to look at where our data comes in for the name, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe we start in the HTML. I don't really know how I want to do this, and
Okay.
maybe for proof of concept, before we have to work out a form and all that stuff, let's literally just add a button that gets one person's name. Because once we're able to get one person's name by their name, then I think, you know, doing the rest of this front end logic will be fine. So can we just add a button?
Yeah. Do like button ID, maybe like oh, forgot the equal sign. What do we want to give
Uh,
the ID of this?
just let's call it who do we want to get? What's an easy name here? There is a
What
name called Brant, Brant. Call it Brant button.
Brant button like that?
Yep, just like that. Can you follow
Yeah.
the convention of the button above it in the
Where,
naming? Can we do BTN?
oh, BTN. Yeah. Sorry. I thought you were talking about the camel case for a second.
I was for a second. All right, and then let's just make this button called just Brant or get Brant, either or, don't matter to me.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Sweet.
Okay.
Let's add some logic for this real quick because I think we're just gonna be duplicating, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Are you talking about copying the function that like
Yep, the
actually sorry.
function, the
I'm
doc,
go ahead.
the document query and the function, please.
The document query and the function. So,
Yeah, all app.js. Sick.
so get people, and there's the one that gets a person by ID. So we
Yeah, so
want
I
to
think, yeah, I think we'll have to change the name of this function later because now it'll probably be like get person by ID later. But for now, we'll just create a new function by a different name. Copy paste 29 through 34, go down, um, just beneath it. And let's call get Brant.
get Brant like that.
Yeah. And
okay. And then I guess it's probably going to take in a name instead of, and then that ID should be a name. That's what I'm guessing.
All right, I
Okay.
think this will probably get it, right? I think all we need to
Gotcha.
do is at the bottom, we add a query. Or sorry, not a query, an action. We also need to grab the action at the top.
Okay. So sorry, the older JavaScript stuff is definitely throwing me off.
No worries.
Let's
Did you
see.
know you can copy down real easy if you just put a cursor on line 4,
Line 4.
hit yeah, just drop it anywhere on line 4. Doesn't matter where it's at, and hit Command and Shift and press down.
Command Shift down.
Oh wait, Command Option down. Oopsies.
Oh. Okay. Command
Option Shift. There we go. Option Shift.
Option
Option Shift
Option
down
Shift
arrow.
down.
Yeah. Now hold Option and press up down with the arrow. You can move it wherever you want.
Oh, okay. So I'll probably get rid of that.
Yeah,
and
and whatever we called that button, let's put it in here.
I think we called it Brant button. I guess I can
Yeah,
look real quick. Brant button. Okay, that matches. But we can't leave this like this, so we'll call it
Probably call it the same thing.
yeah.
Sick.
Okay. So we
I
have
think,
that, and then I know there's something because that gets it in here.
yeah, I think at the bottom. Yeah, we
Oh,
just need to add that.
calling.
Yeah, that event listener.
What's that thing called? Get Brant.
Ooh.
Okay.
Well, that's going to be for list button, right? Not the Brant button. I think instead you should have just copied 76 through 80 and down one.
76 there.
Yeah, so delete that. Just
Oh, I see. I see. Man, I
yeah,
haven't used this stuff in a while.
you can just highlight 76 through 79 as long as you've got something on it. I like to start from the bottom, go up.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't know how
wait.
I did that.
Yeah, you're driving. You can copy paste if you want to. I should have made you do this in Vim. Man, that'd be a
That'd be fun. Probably like that, huh?
yeah. And then
Because
probably just change line 80.
to get
Just say
Brant.
yeah, I think we still want to remove users in there though.
Oh yeah, because it's got to clear the container, I
Mhm.
think.
Sick. Looks good to me.
Okay,
Can we test this real fast?
sure. Let's stop what we got. Clean real quick.
You don't need to clean it. Just rerun it.
I thought we wanted to restart the Docker pool. Or,
I don't really care about a lot of the resources as long as we're getting new files in there. All right, cool.
okay.
Let's see it. Is it there? Hey, let's click it.
Yes. Ooh.
Hey,
Define cores. Did these work? Interesting.
well, that's fine, right? I
What's
mean,
that?
we just made a fetch to something that doesn't exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is acceptable. All right, so I mean, I think the front end's working. We could open up the network to see exactly what it's calling, but it's gonna probably error out because it's doing Flask slash Brant, which you know, that's not a person. So it just passes undefined because it doesn't know. It thinks that's an ID, right? Because
Right.
our backend thinks everything after the slash is an ID. So we can fix that. Let's go to API, I mean, app.py, whatever it's called. So it should be in the API directory. I think we're good with this.
Oh, not this. Whoops.
Yeah, server.py.
There we go.
Sick.
So we need to add a route kind of like ID.
Yeah, I would highlight 29 through 41. Drop it down. Shift option down.
Oh, shift. Yeah, try to get better at this. Shift option down. Man, that's awesome.
Almost as
Okay.
nice as Vim's visual view. All right, take it from here. You know what to do.
Now that we're using name, this will be a name. Let's do the same thing.
Yeah, just kill all that up to the, there you go. Think this will work?
Okay. Does that look correct to you? I think I got everything, but I'll give
Nope,
it a
I know what it's gonna do. Do it.
do it.
Restart it. Yeah, save it, restart it. Make sure you save this page. Yeah, restart it.
And then
We're gonna
just the server this time, or
just hit control C, up arrow, enter.
okay.
Kill them, restart them. I'm just trying to get the what?
Function name. You forgot.
Oh no! Dang.
Let's
go
go
fix that.
back to the code.
So we've got single user here. Change that to literally anything. I don't care. All right, great. Let's try it again.
All right.
That's gonna work. Oh no! You can look at the inspect. You also got your terminal open in iTerm. You can look at what iTerm's telling you. And
ID is undefined.
why is it still undefined?
Still has the old code, it looks like, or we changed the wrong thing.
I don't think so. It says line 38 right there.
Line 38. Oh, because we have two things in the same spot.
What do you mean?
We want the server to expect ID and name to be what's after slash. So how does it know which one is after slash?
Your SQL is wrong. So it'd be where, what is it, first name or whatever that column is? Because you're saying where ID equals name.
We also didn't fix that.
You're looking in the ID.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, what is the field?
It should just be lowercase name.
Okay.
Sick. Will this work?
I hope
still
so.
Not right, because we're calling it that. We're still hitting that first route. So we could make it look like it's right. We could move this above the other one. But basically, this is reading top to bottom. It's looking at the endpoints. It's saying, oh, I have an argument after slash. So if we just shove this one above it, that would work, but we would break this other route, right? Now it wouldn't work for searching by ID. You can move it here, and I bet it'll get us a little bit closer. I've got two solutions, though. We could update the endpoint
to just use a different position.
Yeah, we could do slash ID slash argument, or a cool Flaskism on line 42. Just go between the carets on line 42, right there. One over, get within the caret. Now just type the word integer, int, colon.
Okay.
That tells Flask if it's an integer, use this one. And it's going to
I guess
assume the rest of them are, yeah, you could. Yeah, that's fine. Is this going to work?
Let's give it a shot.
Boy, I sure do love pairing.
Do you see the problem? It's gone.
Oh,
What's the problem? Did we see it yet?
let's see. Conflict PGDB is already in use by container.
That's fine.
Oh,
yeah, I don't think that one exists.
Oh, you're saying that we can't use string like that?
I don't think so. Just get rid of that. Get rid of that string bit on line 28.
I think you got fully type out string.
I think you do too. Let's just get rid of it. Get rid of that. Get rid of the colon, and just leave it as name.
Computers, Milton.
Once more. Here we go. This ought to do it. Are we good? I think we're good.
Me getting anything? I guess I can look at Sorry, my computer's going like so slow.
That's all right. Yeah, see if you can get something up on the page. Otherwise, I think
geez.
that. Uh-oh.
It's trying to get to a terminal. I don't see anything from.
Well, that's good. To get Brant out work.
It's like really hard to tell. There we go. Some things are loading.
Let's check out our terminal. I think our terminal tell us.
Finally it kept showing it was empty, and then finally it all loaded in. Let's see.
Yeah, we're still getting undefined. Why is that?
Let's see. Oh.
Anyone know?
You need to input name somewhere. It doesn't know who you're looking for.
Yeah, we never. Well, no, it does.
Wait, yeah,
think
I guess what I'm confused with is that, like, aren't we taking the name in from the URL right here and then using it, but it's coming in as undefined. So it's like, I guess there's something wrong with that, but I'm trying to figure out where we can.
What does
Do you
your
need to
button
put
do?
single tax by the name that you're referencing? The one that you have highlighted, you need single tax on the outside of that, perhaps?
I know what we did. Go to app.js.
Sorry, it's just taking.
And scroll up to the fetch. We planned ahead, but we never did our MVP. Notice it's just tossing in name.
Oh,
We're not
geez,
ever
sorry.
telling it. We're not ever telling it to look for Brant specifically. On line 39, let's get rid of the name that's interpolated and just type out the word Brant.
Okay. Oh,
Capitalize the B, please.
okay. Just like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't need it.
Do you need the slash before Brent?
Well, you do. Yeah, slash between base URL and Brant. And I think that'll get us there. Minus any issues Python has with taking a capitalized string.
my computer's just really doing great.
I'm reasonably confident this will be it. And if it's not, I'll take over. All right, cool. Let's run it. Oh no.
It should have. Okay, it's just.
Is it not there yet?
I think I clicked the button before it started. It says it's running.
All right, hit a button again.
Nothing.
Oh goodness. Check the terminal real fast. It might be stuck. Yeah, why it's you're starting to churn mud. All right. Well, I'll tell you, unless I'm proved wrong here, I expect that'll work. One of the gotchas here is if you take a look at the SQL file, the names are all capitalized. So whatever comes in as an argument, is it going? Needs to be capitalized or it's not gonna be able to find it. Or SQL may or may not care that much about it, but you can use dot capitalize on the back end. Yeah, it's not even coming through. What the heck?
I don't know why it takes so long to restart too. Usually I can't press Control C that many times on the terminal.
All right. Well, we're gonna stop it there regardless. I thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Can you unshare your screen? Or actually, I think I can't make you not share. All right. That's that. Most of that was still just kind of showing y'all how to work through a server. Do it one more time, nice and slow and easy. I would have liked to have had it spit now, but I mean, I've just done this, so I know that works. Generally, the driver would be asking questions such as, you know, we didn't quite do it this way, but like, how would you do that? So if I said, you know, when we get a name in, you say, oh, you got to capitalize the first letter. The driver right there in the code, you know, typing it up should be like, how do you capitalize in Python? That's where me, the navigator, who's telling him what to do, I would probably look that up for him real quick and be like, oh, hey, just take the string and then dot capitalize and invoke it and that kind of thing. It's more of you're helping them look up stuff as they're working through the code, but you're both there to catch issues, right? It's the person coding is not just mindlessly coding and saying, you broke it. It's like you're both doing it. Generally, if you were going to just hop in and do something, a more senior person oftentimes would be navigating, but that's not always the case. And when it comes to things like, if we've used the term rubber ducking here before, y'all heard that term? Rubber ducking is when you're stuck and you go to explain somebody like what the problem is. You're like, I'm so stuck. Let me just, and as you're explaining them the problem, you're like, actually, I know, never mind. Because you just have to walk yourself through it. That's called rubber ducking because the joke or whatever the practice is, you put a rubber duck on your desk and you just explain the problem to it. But generally, when you walk through the problem and fully explain it, you'll figure it out. And also just kind of getting stuck in your own head on these things. A lot of the times having a second person, a second pair of eyes, you're going to work faster. You might think you can go faster on your own, but all those little mistakes you might make, misspelling something, leaving something hanging, the second person is probably going to, you know, be able to notice it, or they won't. But oftentimes, I don't know. I don't want to work on something by myself ever, honestly. If it's something important and it needs to happen now, if I'm searching through, you know, trying to figure an issue out, if I got a broad issue, if I got to jump on a server and figure something out, having backup on that is good. It makes you code a little bit faster when you really get into the flow of it. You catch more errors and you learn together. Because like we saw where he's copy pasting, I'm like, hey, there's a quick, you know, hotkey for that. And that's another way to kind of share how you do things. And you can see how other people do things. If you never really share how you function, you know, how you work through things, you might just get stuck kind of doing stuff the same way all the time. All the time. This happens a lot with Vim, but I'll be watching someone else code and they'll just do something that a ridiculous amount of text show up exactly right. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? And you're like, oh, you don't know how to. So that's one of my favorite things about it. But yeah, better stop before I start rambling. Any questions?